Unit 9, Lesson 2 is going to be on the surface area of cones, spheres, and pyramids. So previously, we did the surface area of prisms and cylinders. So the last three that we're going to look at are cones, spheres, and pyramids. So let's go ahead and go down. Now, the surface area of a cone is pi r squared plus pi times radius times what's called the lateral height. The lateral height, if you can see right here, our height of our entire cone is AB, but our lateral height is the height that's lateral. So this is actually the height that we want. So the surface area of a cone is pi radius squared plus pi radius times our lateral height. So let's go ahead and let's look at example 1. Now my surface area is pi r squared plus pi times radius times our lateral height. So let's go back at our, our diagram. Now our base of our cone is your circle. This is your base. And then your slant height is the height that's slanted. And then your height is the actual height. But we're looking for the slant height. So pi radius squared. So our radius here, because remember that our base is a circle, so our radius is 4. So, and then our slant height is 6. So now all we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and plug in. So our radius is 4 and our slant height is 6. So pi times 4 squared plus pi times radius, which is 4, times our lateral height, which is 6. So 4 squared is 16 pi. Plus 6 times 4 is 24. I add 24 and 16, and our surface area is 40 pi inches squared. Now let's go ahead and look at example 2. So example 2, if you notice our cone here, we have our base, which is a circle, so our radius is 5, and then we have our height, which is 12. But if you look back at our formula, our formula is pi r squared plus pi times radius times our slant height. So let's go back to our cone. We don't know our slant height here, but we do know that this triangle is a right triangle. So we can use the Pythagorean theorem to find our hypotenuse, which is our slant height. So I did a squared plus b squared is c squared. Our a squared we just plugged in is 5 and 12. So 5 squared plus 12 squared is c squared. 25 plus 144 is c squared. So 169 is c squared, and we want c by itself, so I took the square root of both sides, and I got c is equal to 13. So our slant height is 13, and our radius is 5. So surface area is pi radius squared, so 5 squared, plus pi radius times our lateral height. My radius is 5, and we found out that our lateral height is 13. So our surface area is 5 squared, which is 25 pi, plus 5 times 13, which is 65 pi. So 65 and 25 is 90 pi inches squared. Okay? All right, so now that is a cone. So the second one we're going to look at is a pyramid. So let's first look at a pyramid. Our pyramid has our height, our base, and here's our base. Okay, and then we also have our height, so the height of our entire figure, which is here, and then we have our slant height. Now remember, this height is slanted, so it's our slant height. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's look at our pyramid. First off, we need to figure out what is our formula for a pyramid. So the surface area of a pyramid is the area of my base plus 1/2 of my perimeter. Now remember, it's the perimeter of the base times my slant height. So the first thing you have to do is you have to take out your base. So what type of base do you have? That's what you want to look at. And then you want to look at, okay, so how do I figure out what my slant height is? So let's go over. So a pyramid, my surface area is the area of my base plus 1/2 my perimeter times my slant height. So the base of my pyramid, is my square. So my square, if you remember, a square has all of the same sides. So, and it's 12, it's base times height. And my base is 12, and my height is also 12. So the area of my base is going to be 12 times 12, which is 144. Then I need the perimeter of my base. Now, if my base is a square, that means all four sides are the same. So it's going to be 12 times 4. So 12 times 4 is 48, and that's the perimeter. And then I need to figure out what is my lateral height. Now let's go back to my image. My image here shows that here's the height of my triangle is 10. My base is going to be, the base of my my triangle is going to be half of the actual base. So if my actual base is 12, then half is going to be 6. So in my triangle, I have 10 is my height, and then I've got 6 as my base, and then I need to know what my slant height is. So I went ahead and I took it out and I drew it here. So I've got 10 and 6, and what I need for my formula up here, if you look up here, is my slant height. So again, we have to use the Pythagorean theorem. So I've got 10 squared plus 6 squared is my lateral height. So 10 squared is 100, 6 squared is 36, is equal to my lateral height. So 100 plus 36 is 136, and that equals c squared. I square root both sides, and then I have to take my square root, and I actually have to simplify it. So 136 is 2 times 68, and then I take 68 and I get 2 times 34, and then I take 34 and I get 2 times 17. There's only two like terms here, which is 2, so I pull out my 2. This should be a 2. And then I keep my 34. So 2 square root of 34, which I changed over here. So I've got my base, and if we go back up to my formula, it's the area of my base, which is 144, plus 1/2 my perimeter. My perimeter is 48, times my lateral height, which was 2 square root of 34. So 2 square root of 34. So I went ahead and I took half from both. So I have 144 plus half of 48 is 24, and half of 2 is 1 square root of 34. So then I have 144 plus 24, because 24 times 1. So 144 plus 24, 24 times 1 is 24. So 144 plus 24 square root of 34. Now, the reason why you can't combine these is because you've got your square, and you actually can't combine these two terms. So it's 144 plus 24 square root of 34. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the next example. So my next example, it's the same thing. We're going to go ahead and we've got our base. Our base is a square, so 10 times 10 is 100. So my base is 100. My perimeter, all four sides of our square are going to be 10. So 10 times 4 is 40. And I need to figure out what my slant height is, because again, it doesn't give you my slant height, but it gives you that my height is 12, and then half of my actual base, which is 5. So I went ahead and drew it out. I've got 12 and 5, and I need to figure out my slant height. So 12 squared is 144, and 5 squared is 25. So 144 plus 25 is c squared. 169 is c squared. I want c by itself, so I square both sides, and I get c is equal to 13. So my slant height is 13, which I went ahead and labeled those all for you up here. So again, my formula is the area of my base plus 1/2 perimeter times my lateral height. So my base is 100 plus 1/2 of my perimeter times my lateral height. So 40 times 13 is 520. I took half of that and I got 260. So 100 plus 260 is 360 centimeters squared. All right, and then the last thing we're going to look at is our sphere. So the first thing we need to know is what is the surface area of a sphere? So the surface area of a sphere is 4 pi radius squared. So, like I said before, there are a ton of formulas for all of these shapes. So you really need to write these formulas down multiple times so that you know them. So the surface area of a sphere is 4 times pi times r times your radius squared. So let's look at example 1. It says find the surface area of the sphere. It gives us our radius, which is 2, and that's actually all we need to know in a sphere. So my radius is 2, so 4 pi 2 squared, so 2 squared is 4, 4 times 4 is 16, so 16 pi inches squared. And then B, it gives us that our radius is 4, so I've got 4 squared, which is 16, so 4 pi times 16, 16 times 4 is 64, which gives us 64 pi inches squared. And then let's go ahead and look at example 2. In example 2, it actually tells us that our circumference, and if you recall it, the circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. Now if you look, 2 pi r and the area, the surface area of a sphere, it's half, because half of 4 is 2, and then radius squared is just radius by itself. So the circumference of a circle is 14 pi feet. What is the surface area of the sphere? So we take half of that and we get 7 pi. And last, example 4. It says a baseball and its leather covering are shown. The baseball has a radius of 1.5 inches. So our surface area is 4 pi radius squared. So I have 4 pi r squared. My radius is 1.5, so 1.5 squared, 1.5 times 1.5 is 2.25, so 2.25 times 4 is 9, so the surface area is 9 pi inches squared.